Okay, so when you're naming covalent compounds, if I gave you one that looked like this, first of all, these are all two nonmetals, and the rules are very straightforward. So if this says S3F9, you literally just say what is the element and how many of them are there, and that's how you name it. So it's a lot better. Oh, by the way, the prefixes that you use are in foldy, which is somewhere right here. Here are the prefixes, where it says covalent prefixes. Not organic, as Maddie knows, not organic. That's a whole other beast. Yeah, but this is just covalent. So those are the prefixes you use to indicate the numbers of elements that you have. So S3F9, give the first one its regular name, give the second one an IDE ending, and use the prefixes. So there are 3 sulfurs, that's tri-sulfur. And there are 9 fluorines, that's nona, N-O-N-A, fluoride, F-L-U-O-R-I-D-E, nona fluoride. Lucy calls my mom Nona. Is that not adorable?
Why?
Nona is grandma in Italian.
Italian?
Yes.
Where'd she learn that?
Where'd she learn that? She's very smart.
Just look it up.
So, first one gets tri for 3. The second one gets the nona for 9. Sulfur and fluoride becomes, or fluorine becomes fluoride. That's kind of what happened there. If the first one's by itself, you don't use the mono prefix. That's the only weird thing you need to remember about this. So there's 1 carbon here, but I don't say monocarbon, I just say carbon. Only for the first one. If the second one's by itself, then you would use the mono prefix. And then how many oxygens are there? 2, so that becomes dioxide. Carbon dioxide, ever heard of it? No. You're breathing it out right now. Anyway, that's what a nerd would say to you. But I'm clearly not a nerd. The next one, 1 carbon. Again, you don't use the mono prefix for the first one, so that's just carbon. But you do use the mono prefix when the second one's by itself. So what is that? Monoxide, M-O-N-O-X-I-D-E. If there are 2 vowels there, you can drop 1 or make it sound better. Like this would be monooxide, but I would go with monoxide.
So what if we did put both of them?
I'd probably fail you from the class. No, accidents happen, and that's no big deal. Finally, I'm going to give you one that you can try. Whoopsies. That says XEF6. Yeah, don't breathe that in. You breathe that in all the time. Most of the air is carbon dioxide, actually, that you breathe. Or some of it is, not most of it, sorry. Most of it is nitrogen. But you can breathe it. But if it was like a room filled with carbon dioxide, you would die because you need oxygen. You know, you can't just. You need oxygen to live. Yeah, but not by itself. Pure O2, yeah. So the first element is xenon, and it's by itself, no prefix necessary, so it's just xenon, X-E-N-O-N. And then there are 6 fluorines that becomes fluoride, and then hexa for 6, hexafluoride. Did you guys have that? Raise your hand if you had that. Okay, fine. Alright, that's the easy part. The naming rules are simplified. There's less of them, there's less exceptions, there's no Roman numerals, there's no reverse crisscross, there's no weird stuff. The challenge, though, is when you have what I would call mixed naming, when some of them are ionic and some of them are covalent. And how do you know when to do what? Here's how you know. There's really one simple thing that you should remember to do for naming ionic and covalent, and that's the first thing you should do is always look for a metal. If there is a metal, if the answer to the question, is there a metal, is a yes, that's an ionic compound, and there are no prefixes. This is where you would use foldy, or possibly Roman numerals, but not always. Basically what we've been doing for the last week and a half. Only if there's a metal. If there's no metal, then it's covalent. And you would definitely use prefixes. There we go. So I'm going to write 3 mixed ones down, and then we're going to look at them together and see if we can name them. So I'm doing that right now. So what's happening? Okay, look at number 1. The second one's always going to be a metal. Notice metal, metal, metal. Or sorry, second one's always going to be a non-metal, 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 non-metal. The first one is really the only one you care about if that's a metal or not. And so when you say, okay, calcium, and then you go look it up on Foldy, and you clearly notice that calcium is definitely a metal. It's right there, which is the very left side of the stair-step line. By the way, if you don't have the stair-step line, it would be very useful right now. So it starts at the bottom of boron and goes down. You should make that stair-step line right now while I'm thinking about it. Everything to the left of it is a metal. Everything to the right of it is a non-metal. Of course, some of these along the way are metalloids, but you won't see those very often. Okay, so calcium is definitely a metal. Phosphorus is a non-metal. This is ionic naming rules. And if you remember the very first day of ionic, I told you got to ignore the subscripts and name it the regular name for the first element, and then IDE for the second element. So that'll be calcium phosphide. The temptation is now that you want to write tricalcium diphosphide, but that wouldn't work here because these are ionic compounds and they do not get prefixes. Next one. S4Cl5 is S sulfur. Is that a metal or non-metal? 2 people think it's a non-metal, and those people are correct. Sulfur is right here, the right side of the stair-step line, so it's a non-metal. So then you use prefixes, okay, which we just learned. Prefix for 4 is tetra, tetrasulfur, and the prefix for 5 is penta, pentachloride. Notice you still give the second element an IDE ending. No crisscross. Don't write pentachloride tetrasulfide because you like reverse the numbers that are there. Some people want to do that, and that's not correct. Karen, go ahead. What's that? Calcium is a metal. This one's not a metal.
Oh, that was not.
Yeah. When it's a metal, you just use the name the first, second one, IDE. No prefix is necessary.
What do you mean Foldy Roman numerals?
Well, if it's a metal, that means that you have a better chance of using these Roman numerals or using Foldy for it. If it's a non-metal, like these two are, you won't ever look on this side for non-metals because you're always
Look on that side.
you just be here, yeah. You're always going to be up periodic table. There'll be no parentheses, nothing weird like that. Like for example, in the next one, nickel is definitely a metal, and so you would write okay nickel, and then this PO4 you would use this side, oopsies, right here, and say that's phosphate. So that is phosphate. And then, so it is the ionic nickel phosphate, but nickel's a transition metal, so we're going to need some Roman numerals there. So phosphate, if you look, is -3, and then that means that nickel has to be +3 to cancel it out. So it ends up being nickel 3 phosphate. If you're using Roman numerals, then you're definitely an ionic compound.
What about phosphide?
That would be, well, you could be, but if it was this, it would still work. Nickel, yeah. But this PO4 is a non-metal, and this is phosphide's a non-metal as well. PO4 is phosphate. P by itself is phosphide. Okay. Other questions? Make sense? You want to see another one? Do you want? Can I have some feedback?
Sure.
Sure.
Maddie, thank you so much. That was really, really nice. I feel really happy right now. I'm so ecstatic. Name that, BR307. Figure out if it's ionic or covalent. It sounds like you already figured it out. Bless you. Before we name it, is it ionic or covalent? It's covalent, right? Because bromine is a non-metal. Oxygen's also a non-metal, but the second one's always going to be a non-metal. So just look at the first one. Bromine's on the right side of the stair-step line. It's a non-metal. And then oxygen's a non-metal as well. So it's covalent. Br307, use the prefixes. So tri for 3, and then that's bromine. And then for 7, that's hepta. And you can go heptaoxide or just heptaoxide. They're probably both the same. Heptaoxide. No judging either way. And that is how you would name it. First one's the same, second one gets the IDE ending.